Well, let's now find out the potential of this project for Africa, and let's delve into this with Dr. Francis Mang'eni. He's an advisor on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area at the Office of the Secretary General. Great to have you with us on the show, Doctor. Now, of course, I'd like to start off with your take on the potential of this project. We know this corridor has been framed as a game changer for regional trade on the continent. What's your take on how this specific project reflects on Africa's broader ambitions when it comes to rerouting trade, de-risking trade amongst others, and what's your take on what it could unlock for intra-African commerce from North to West Central Africa?
Yes, very much so. It is indeed a game changer, as you have said very rightly. We know very well that intra-Africa trade needs to grow, especially between Central Africa and North Africa, Central Africa and West Africa, Central Africa and the rest of Africa. So this corridor is fundamental towards achieving this objective of growing intra-Africa trade. And of course, we need this intra-Africa trade to grow in order to create jobs, have decent living standards on the continent.
And I'd like your take on the progress when it comes to such projects, because infrastructure such as the Trans-Saharan corridor or the project that we've called LAPSET, which is the Kenya-Lamu Port South Sudan-Ethiopia transport corridor, they definitely show the need for deeper, longer-term investment in such infrastructure. Give us a sense of what mechanisms, whether through the AfCFTA, regional banks, or even partnerships with the government, which of these are most promising when it comes to helping Africa finance such projects and, of course, control its own trade arteries?
Yeah, that's right. So the first point that you made, and which we need to always underscore, is that under the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, what we famously call PIDA, a lot of progress has been achieved indeed. You just mentioned the LAPSET corridor. But even this corridor that we are talking about, all the way down to Abeche in Chad, through Sufra in Libya to Eastern Egypt, progress has started, right? Work has started. So we expect that by 2030, many of these projects will have been completed. And why is that an important year? Because also 2031 to 2034 is the time when the transition period for the African Continental Free Trade Area expires. The African Continental Free Trade Area will all fully be operational. Of course, it is operational already, but I said to be fully operational. Trading has started under the AfCFTA. We know that already. Since 2022, we have been trading. Already more than 5,000 certificates of origin have been issued, with the shipments crisscrossing the continent from the west to the east to the south and into the north as well, into Egypt. So the progress is there to be seen, but we are on track to get to 2030. But could I just point out that these infrastructure projects constitute huge investment opportunities. There is a study which has estimated these investment opportunities of infrastructure demanded by the African Continental Free Trade Area at $411 billion. We shall need 2.2 million trucks in order to have the infrastructure required for the AfCFTA. We shall need railway wagons. Actually, we need railway wagons more maybe than even roads. We need open air markets,
Right.
Right, and vessels, yes.
Well, yes. As we wait for the AfCFTA to be implemented, as you said, the goal is 2030. Let's take a look at the current realities on ground. We have quite a lot going on: geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions, increasing protectionism. I'd like to get your take on how critical trade is for Africa right now, in terms of acting as a unified bloc under frameworks such as the AfCFTA, and what does this mean for our negotiating power on the world stage, especially with the progress we've seen AfCFTA make so far?
Now, you see, that's the crux of the point, the crux of the matter. The point being that given the geopolitical situation now, of protectionism, we can see what's happening in the US and across the world, the conflicts. Africa needs to look more closely inwards. What do we have on the continent? And we have got a lot. Critical minerals, and things like that. But we need infrastructure. So through the African Continental Free Trade Area, which aims to create a single African internal market to make us one block as a continent of $10 trillion in purchasing power parity, which would make us actually the fourth largest economy in the whole world. We become strong. We speak from a point of strength, and we're able to generate both internal investment as well as attract foreign direct investment because we are viable. That's a huge market. We are talking about $10 trillion, and that is the combined market of Africa. So it's critical, as you said, that Africa realizes it is a leverage and acts as one block in this new geopolitical dispensation, speaking from a point of strength. And the AfCFTA provides a suitable framework for a unified voice. It covers many areas. It covers trading goods, trading services, investment, intellectual property, digital trade. Digitalization is extremely important in our times.
Right.
Competition as well, and dispute settlement. So we actually have the architecture in place. We just need to mobilize, be aware of what's going on, and the importance of acting together, speaking from a unified voice, with a unified voice on the international scene.
Well, it is interesting you say that, because I've heard critics say that the AfCFTA is sort of an ideal, but when it comes to implementation, it has a problem. And I guess the question is, how can we make AfCFTA more than just an agreement on paper right now? What are the policy shifts, customs harmonization, or private sector involvement that are still needed to translate some of these infrastructure investments into actual seamless trade systems across the continent? How far are we from achieving that?
Right. So next time you talk to that individual who said that the AfCFTA is not yet implemented, please try to correct them and tell them that the AfCFTA is up and running. Trade is happening already under the AfCFTA. For many African countries, big ones such as Nigeria, small ones such as Eswatini, Africa is either the #1 export destination for them or a significant export destination or market for these countries. So the AfCFTA is up and running. It's in place. Countries are already seizing opportunities. You are based in Kenya, aren't you? Kenya exported a huge consignment of tea to Ghana, actually, not too long ago. And this consignment was basically accumulated or aggregated from small outgrowers. So it actually impacts directly even on small to medium scale enterprises as well as small businesses. So it is up and running, it's happening. And if you listen to every important statement across the world, whether that is at FOCAC, whether it's TICAD, whether it's G8, the AfCFTA is always mentioned as a force for good, as a game changer. So there is a universal recognition that the AfCFTA is in place and is a force for good and is required, in fact, for structural transformation on the continent by creating one market, spurring investment and industrialization, and making infrastructure projects, huge infrastructure projects, cross-border projects, viable, because we are now working together as a bloc under the AfCFTA. So it is up and running. We have a secretariat in Ghana, in Accra, with more than 220 personnel. And we have held 16 meetings of ministers of trade. At every summit of the African Union, which is held in January, February, there's a huge declaration or decision on the AfCFTA. The heads of state and government, foreign affairs ministers, ministers of finance, ministers of trade are seized with the matter, excited about it. Every head of state and government on the continent is talking about the AfCFTA as well. So please correct them. Yeah, we need this Afro-optimism that we're headed in the right direction and that things are actually working, things are looking up. Everybody is coming to the continent. Africa is the place to be. Africa is open for business.
Right.
I think that's the message that needs to be going out right now.
Right. I like that Afro-optimism. Well, we will leave it on that optimistic note, Doctor. Thank you so much for those great insights.